Hello, crypto world. Welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin, and on this channel, I delve deep into crypto charts, exploring chart structures, fractals, and patterns. So in this video, I have the Casper chart open, and I'd like to talk about what I believe Casper is doing, where I believe it is going, and what you should be prepared for in the coming days. So let's make this chart come to life with a few lines and markings. Bam, here we go. So it is my belief that Casper has completed the first bull run structure of the overall Casper bull run. In this structure, there are three waves. Wave 1 right here, which was quite small. Wave 2, which is a little bigger. And wave 3, which was quite large. This third wave came crashing all the way back down into wave 1. And we are now working on the beginning part of the next structure. So this is the move up really into the next structure, the way I break the fractals down. Now, where am I pulling this data from, and what are these two different fractals? Well, to answer that question, we need to go back in time to the beginning of the Casper chart. So this, folks, is the beginning of the Casper chart. Now, you're not going to find this on TradingView. I am using CoinTrader Pro. CoinTrader Pro allows me to go further back in time. It also allows me to zoom in on a small time frame. So right now I'm on an hour candle. So what are all these boxes? Well, I take this part of the structure and I break it up into separate fractals. So the reason why I'm going back here is because this initial part of the Casper chart is what Casper is following nowadays. So let me briefly explain to you what this chart does and where I believe we are currently at in the overall structure. So Casper starts with a bull run. It then comes to a peak, it then declines, and does this fractal right here, which is kind of an undulation fractal where it creates several waves before breaking down to the downside. It eventually comes to a bottom. One little marker of the bottom is this little bounce that we see right here. After this completion of the downtrend, Casper moves back up into the first fractal of several fractals, which will make up the sideways range-bound time. So price moves up, comes to a peak, it pulls back, moves back up again, and then winds its way down before entering into the next fractal, or the second fractal of the sideways range-bound time. Price moves up, pulls back, kind of goes flat here, creating this little bowl right here, and then it moves sideways and then drops before entering the final fractal of the sideways range-bound time, and this is characterized by a bounce. After this bounce, Casper moves up into another bull run. This structure is structurally the same as this bull run. After it comes to a peak, it then pulls back and does that structure right here where it undulates, similar to this one right here, and then it breaks to the downside. The bottom of this structure is marked by a bounce. This time the bounce was quite a bit larger than this time. This one was quite small. So here we are zoomed in a little more. There's that bounce at the bottom. There's the bounce over here. So Casper moves back up again, makes a little peak right here with this little wick, pulls back, makes another one, pulls back again, and kind of winds its way sideways to a point before moving up into the next fractal. It did the same thing over here, so it moved up, moved back down, moved back up again, moved back down, and winded its way sideways before moving into the next fractal that had that bowl structure. We see that same bowl structure over here. This time it's a little larger, so price moves up again, drops, goes sideways. It's actually not just totally flat. There are waves in here. We'll see that it becomes more visible as time marches on. So price moves back up again and then winds its way down to a point. This one right here went flat and then dropped. This one just kind of winded its way down to a point. So they both drop to a low before entering into the final fractal of the sideways range-bound time, which is a bounce. We'll talk about the bull run in a minute. After the bull run was this part where it pulls back here and over here. This time it was extremely large, and then there's that fractal where it has the waves, where it undulates. You can see it right here, the two waves. After that part right here, it breaks down to the downside, and at this point you need to go to a day candle because it moves very slowly. This is that fractal we were just looking at. It's very small because now we're on a day candle. However, price breaks to the downside and does a small little bounce right here, in the same way that it did that here and here. Price then moves back up to a peak. It then declines, moves back up again. Just like we see over here, after the bounce, it moves up to a peak. It then declines, moves back up again. And over here, it moves up, creating this little candle right here, this wick, and then drops and moves back up again. Even have that little candle wick right there. Price then winds its way down to a point before entering into the next fractal. Just as we see here, we even have this wave that takes place right here and right here, which we see right here after these two peaks right here. It winds its way down to a point and then moves up into the next fractal. Okay, so I zoomed in so it's a little easier to see. So price moves up, makes a peak, drops, does that bowl structure. This time we see the waves that exist inside that bowl structure. That is these waves right here. Here's that bowl structure, and here's that bowl structure the first time around. This time it happened very quick. It's not very visible, the waves, but you can see that it's not perfectly flat there. After this bowl structure comes the decline where it winds its way down to a point before entering the bounce before the first bull run structure. In the same way that this one here does the same thing. It winds its way down to a point. This one went flat and then dropped and then did the bounce, whereas this one winded its way down to a point, just like the most recent version, did the bounce. And then here is that first bull run structure. So here is the first bull run structure. The pink fractal, it comes from over here in April 2021. So here we have the first wave right here, just as we have the first wave in the most recent iteration. We have the second wave right here, just as we have the second wave in today's iteration. We have the third wave, which does a substantial decline into wave 1 zone, just as we have had a substantial decline in wave 3, which brought it into wave 1 zone. Wave 3 was the highest peak in this structure, just as we see here. So this structure is, I would say, the closest match to today's chart. So that was over here. It's very small, hard to see right now. The next structure was this one. While it looks different, it does the same idea. So the structure has its first wave right here. We see here, this is the blue fractal. Price moves up into the second wave, that right here with the blue fractal. And then price comes to a peak in the third wave and declines. And it does the same here. However, the difference is today's chart crumbled all the way back into wave 1 zone, just like this earlier iteration of this structure. However, on this structure, it holds its own. It does not decline into wave 1 zone. So let's move back to the pink structure, which is the first one. And there's this little tiny green dot right here. That is where we are. Let's zoom in and get a better look at this. Here is that little tiny green dot. So it is my belief we have completed this structure with the wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, with the crash that goes down into wave 1. We went through this flat sideways time, which was right here. And now we are in this part right here, which is this part right here. So if we copy and paste this, will be the pink fractal right here. And as you can see, it does what it should be doing. Price moves up and then it goes kind of flat and sideways. Now, the drawback to this pink fractal is it happened on such a small time frame. There is no definition in this structure. However, the blue one, which takes place over here, we do have more definition, as this one took longer to play out. So here we are, zoomed into this structure so you can get a better look. So as you can see, it moves up in steps. It then comes to a peak. It then declines and kind of goes flat before moving up. So that is represented by this blue fractal right here. And as we can see, it moves up in a kind of choppy fashion. So it is my belief that this wave would be akin to this right here on this blue fractal. It then moves up here in the fractal, which is represented by this right here, this wave in the chart. It then moves up to this peak right here, which is represented by the move up in the fractal. However, after this, it kind of goes flat. This part that we saw here, sort of flat. It is my belief this is the part that we are in now. It's important to note that even though this fractal looks flat, in the chart you saw a small bounce right here. We should expect some waves in this. I don't know how long this part will last. It could stretch out further. I don't know. Time will tell. But you should expect some bouncing, some choppiness. It's not just going to necessarily move flat. It can, but I would just be prepared for some waves or some bounces in this area. Again, I don't know how long it will last. Now, what about this right here? So this is the next part of the move up that we will go into. Now, it could be something that takes place very fast. However, we do see the same kind of choppiness that existed over here. So this could take longer than what is expected to play out. Now, even this part right here, I had to stretch this part of the fractal out quite a bit more. It was normally much, much smaller, but today's chart is playing out slower. And because it's moving slower, we have much more clarity and definition of this structure. So that same idea could play out over here. Now, it will get to a point where it will begin to move up faster right here, and then there'll be a decline. So that would be this choppiness right here, and then it moves up faster, and then there is this steep decline before entering the real declining part of this structure, which price moves up, and then it takes back almost all of what it gained in its move up in this part of the structure. We're not there yet. We're over here, so let's focus on this. So this is the part that we're in right now. At some point, we will complete this and begin this part of the structure. Now, the pink fractal, this one right here, is very pixelated, so there is not much definition here. However, I wouldn't be surprised if you can zoom in further, which I don't have the ability to zoom in any further. We would probably find similarities between this long green candle and this part right here, which is, as you can see, much more choppy than one green candle up. Now, it could move fast, but I would be prepared for something like this. So, folks, Casper is on track. It may seem like it's a stick in the mud right now, but it is actually doing what it should be doing. I know this is supposed to be a bull run, and I keep talking about price moving up. It will, but this is the beginning part of the structure. As this progresses through these corrective parts, you begin to get more movement the further along this structure goes. So we are only in the beginning part. There's a lot of sideways movement in the beginning part. As this structure develops, we get more movement upward, but be prepared for a bit of a slog going up in this part. All right, so I cleaned this chart up a bit. Well, I hope this video was helpful. If you did find it helpful, it'd be much appreciated if you hit that thumbs up button. You know, for those of you who are in Casper at this point, you are early in the bull run structure. This is a good thing, but being early means you have to kind of go through this painful part. You may look back and be glad that you were in Casper in this phase. It's one thing intellectually to acknowledge this kind of stuff. It's another thing to go through it. You have all the emotions at play. Oh my gosh, it's moving down. Oh, now it's moving up. Yay. I'm here to show you the bigger picture. Right now, Casper is on track. I'm not a financial advisor, so please don't consider this financial advice. That would be a mistake. If you did enjoy this video and you're not a subscriber yet, I recommend hitting that subscribe button. I'll continue to follow up on this chart as it continues to develop. I'm so glad you caught this video. I hope you catch my next one. Have a great day, and bye for now.